Hey, it's Zach. I just want to show a few features I've been working on in the new Looper version. As everybody knows, this is what the old one looks like. This is the version I've had for the last 6 years. Wrote it in AutoIt. I've decided to rewrite the new version in Visual Studio using visualbasic.net because it's a little more extensive. It's actually a lot more extensive, and it lets me do a lot more with the program that I couldn't do with AutoIt. AutoIt's a great language, but this is a lot better. And I'm still learning it. I mean, I'm learning it as I go. So I have probably about 90 to 95% of the new program done, but I want to make sure everything's good before I set it free, whatever. So here is the new version. It's a little bit bigger. I made the window a little bit wider, and the playlist is now a separate window from the control panel. So you can detach it, you can move it around, you can make it bigger and wider. And if you want to dock it again, just double click hide playlist. So it docks it to the main window. They also move in unison if you want to do that. When you load a looper file, it colors the events based on their location in the looper file. And what I mean by that is, these ones are green because the looper file I opened, let me close my old one here. The looper file I opened, this file exists. So when it loads the looper file, it finds where the file it's asking for is, and if it's where it says it is, it colors it green. Now if I open the same looper file but from my archive here, squirrels, these ones are blue, and the reason they're blue is because the path that they're asking for, let's see, squirrels, the path they're asking for exists in the directory where the looper file is, which the file is this one right here. But the original file is asking for Gamma? It's asking for this folder, which doesn't exist anymore. This drive no longer exists. But because the media file that it's asking for, which is this here, exists in the same folder where the looper file is, it can find it and say, okay, these ones, the ones that are green, load the exact path it's asking for. See, that's this file right here. The ones that are blue are asking for a file that originally existed at this location, but no longer do, but they now exist in the looper folder, or the folder where the looper file is. So they're marking in blue. They're not exactly where they said they were, but they still exist in the folder where the looper folder is. Looper file is, sorry. So these ones will play perfectly fine, these ones will play perfectly fine, but if it comes to a file that it can't find at all, it colors it red. Red means that the file doesn't exist neither where it originally said it would, or where the looper file is. So none of these files exist in the folder where that squirrel looper file is, and if you go to this path here, and exports, there's nothing in there. So these files, Looper cannot find it at all. And I'm working on, I have to write a find file dialog like I had for my original one, where when you click on a file, it'll ask you if you want to find it. These are the little things that I'm trying to iron out now, that aren't quite ready yet. But I want to have all this stuff ready before I release anything. Let me make a new one here. Let me load the original squirrel thing here. So, a few other features I am adding to this version. Options, you can find the file, that's all the same. These are basically the same, except I moved them onto the playlist window. You can hide that too if you want. You can just have this playlist or this control panel open if you don't want to see the playlist. And you can also minimize that too, so now it's headless. There's no, GUI to interact with, and you can still do all the same in and out points, all that stuff, going to next playlist, next event, So all that stuff is still available. I've also added a few new procedures for adding things. So if you click add event, when you add an event, instead of putting that little dialog box up, it'll actually show a line in the list here with an area where you can edit the name of it. So let's just say, squirrel, let's make it that. So That's the event I added, and when you add a new event, it's colored white, just to differentiate it from the colors of a loaded event. That's a brand new event, it's white. It hasn't been saved at all yet. When you save a new, or overwrite or save a new one, Looper will take the files relative to the path of where the Looper file is, and save that as the new path to the event. So, if I save this to the desktop, let's do just like test here, test. It'll color the whole thing green, because now all these files are where the Looper file says they are. Because it basically repointed the ones that were in that other directory to the directory where the Looper file was. That's kind of wordy, but basically it's saying it just fixes the paths. So when you save it, all the paths are relative. They're all correct. But anyway, in adding things, you can also add events to the middle of the playlist now instead of always at the end. So let's say I wanted to add something here at 108. If I wanted to add something at 109, right-click Add Event, choose Insert New Events after current selection. And then when you add an event, it puts it at the end of the currently selected event. So event after 108. And 113, let's make another one here. Event after 113. So you can add events anywhere instead of having to make it and then drag it up. You can make it wherever you want. It always does it at the end of the selection. So if you have a bunch of things selected, you add an event, it adds it there. Event after selection. Spelled that wrong, but I don't care. To rename an event, click on it and then hit F2. It gives you this little dialog. You call it something else. New event test. And if you want to adjust the amount of times it plays in a playlist mode, like if you wanted to play 4 or 5 times, hit F3 and you can change that. The way this event list is laid out, this is the percentage of the speed it will play, and this is how many times it will play in a playlist mode. So if you want to do, let's switch to playlist mode here. This one will play 10 times. And you can see it counting down here. Probably not the best example because this is a 4-second loop, which means it'll take 40 seconds to complete. Let me do one that's really quick here. This one's shorter, so let's make this one like 8. So that one will play 8 times, and you see it. Switch to playlist mode. You'll see it's count down here from 8. And then once it does it the 8th time, it'll go to the next event you have selected. Or if you don't have anything selected, the next event in the list. So it goes to that one, then this one, then that one. So that works the same way. Another thing you can do 2 different ways, and this will be the last thing I show for today, is if you want to add an event, or if you want to open a Looper file, you can open it like you normally would be able to. So I just open a Looper file just as I would any other time. But you can also import Looper files into the current playlist by choosing right-clicking Load and choosing Import Looper File into current playlist. So if I do that, I can take another Looper file and add it at the end. So I just re-added the same thing twice. Another thing you can do with a combination of this insert and middle thing here, there all again, just load this short one here. Actually, no, let me load the long one. You can do the same thing, but in the middle of a playlist. So if you choose, right-click Add Event, choose Insert New Events after current selection, click on a selection, and then do Import Looper File. All the events you import will be imported after 108. So let me find one more file here, squirrels. It will insert all the stuff after 108. So this is a brand new, completely different Looper file that it imported right in the middle of the other Looper file. So if you want to save it, save. It'll always say save new because you made a completely new playlist when you did that. Test new playlist. All of them are green because now the paths are relative. And when you load it, it'll load like that. I changed the numbering as well. So instead of starting at 1, it starts at 100 now because that makes managing a lot of events more easy than it does when you start at 1. Because you can go to 1,000. You can have like 900 events before it starts getting weird. And by weird, I mean like sorting wise. You know, when you sort numbers from like 1 to 100, it usually goes like 1, 10, 11, 12, and then down to 2, and then 20. It's a weird sorting thing because you're looking at the value of a string instead of the value of the number. I'm not going to explain all that, but yeah, it's easier to start at 100. Plus, I changed it so when you delete a series of events, like let's just delete these 20 of these, 21. It doesn't renumber anything. The only time it renumbers is when you save, because when you save, that is the new numbering. So when you save, overwrite, change the numbers. But when you just delete a few things, it doesn't change the numbers, because relatively, that's still 105, that's still 117. You can still drag and drop, you can still resorting things, still resort to that. So that's pretty much, not everything, but that's the main big things I've changed in this version. I've been refining it over and over and over and over and over, like just, I probably posted about 50 commits on GitHub for the last 4 weeks, where I just like tweak little things I'll notice, and then I'll tweak something else. So I'm trying to get all these things ironed out, trying to get it completely, as close to perfection as I can get before I actually like put it out there. And that's where I'm at now. So it's mostly done, but I'm still working on it, and I hopefully will be able to have it by the middle of the month. I would think I should, because there's just a few other things. I mean, search still works. Everything is pretty much written. I just need to make sure everything works in every situation. Beta test it, run it through the ringer completely to make sure everything works, nothing goes haywire or anything like that. See, like that. That's a little remnant from my programming thing to make sure that I'm looking at the right event. So little things like that, I need to take them out. Things like that. And it's like, I will be putting it out there. I don't think it's ready 100% of the way quite yet. So, more updates to come. Thank you for listening.